You pick up your phone to check one notification. 90 seconds later, you are still scrolling, and somehow you feel worse than when you started. Nothing bad actually happened to you. Nobody insulted you. You didn't lose your job, your money, or your health. So why does it feel like you are quietly falling behind everyone you know? 40,000 years ago, a hunter felt a version of that same feeling, but almost nothing existed to trigger it. They measured themselves against the 10 or 15 people who sat around their fire, who brought back more meat today, who ran faster during the chase, who the group trusted when a hard decision had to be made. Out of everyone alive on Earth, how many did they actually compare themselves to? A few dozen at most, all known, all visible, all real. Status inside that small group mattered enormously because it quietly decided who ate first, who felt safest, and who other people chose to build a life with. But there was no one else to measure themselves against because there was no way to see anyone else. You don't have that limit anymore. You compare yourself to the fittest bodies, the biggest paychecks, the most exciting vacations, and the happiest-looking relationships of nearly everyone on Earth who owns a phone. Somewhere right now, a stranger your age is posting a life that looks better than yours in almost every visible way. Why would a stranger you will never meet make you feel like you personally are losing? Some part of your brain, without asking your permission, has quietly filed that stranger as a rival. In 1954, a psychologist named Leon Festinger proposed an idea that still quietly runs your emotional life today. He argued that people have a built-in drive to evaluate themselves, and when no objective measuring stick exists, they reach for other people instead. Festinger called this social comparison. Researchers who later built on his work showed something else. Comparing yourself to someone who seems better off, what they called upward comparison, tends to sting, while comparing yourself to someone worse off can actually make you feel better. For most of human history, you mostly controlled which direction you looked, choosing to notice the one person struggling more than you, not just the one person thriving. Do you still get to make that choice today? Not really, because the comparison tool itself was calibrated for a small world. British anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent years studying the relationship between primate brain size and social group size, and found a strikingly consistent number. The human brain, he discovered, can only comfortably maintain stable relationships with around 150 people. That ceiling is now known as Dunbar's number, and it lines up closely with the size of a hunter-gatherer band or a small ancestral village. It is not the size of your Instagram following. It is definitely not the size of the internet. So what happens when a brain built to rank itself against 150 people is handed a comparison pool of 3 billion, almost all of it tilted upward? It reacts as if every single one of them is a real rival standing at your fire. Neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky spent decades observing wild baboons and found that an animal's rank inside its troop directly predicted its stress hormone levels. Lower-ranked baboons carried chronically elevated cortisol, not because they faced constant danger, but because they were constantly tracking their position relative to everyone above them. Your brain runs a strikingly similar calculation, and it is not especially picky about its inputs. It does not reliably tell the difference between a real competitor and a stranger's photo on a screen. Both get filed under the same ancient heading, a rival to measure yourself against. And if your brain treats every stranger online like a real rival, what happens when almost none of those rivals are showing you the truth? The content that spreads furthest on social platforms is rarely someone's ordinary Tuesday. It is the promotion, the engagement ring, the beach at sunset, the body after months of effort compressed into one flattering angle. Every platform quietly rewards whatever keeps you watching, and comparison keeps you watching, so the system keeps serving you exactly the material most likely to make you feel like you are behind. Psychologist Jean Twenge has tracked a sharp rise in teenage anxiety, loneliness, and depression that lines up closely with the years smartphones and constant social media use became the norm rather than the exception. Her research does not claim phones are the only cause of that shift, but the timing is difficult to explain away. Part of the problem is exactly what you are being shown. What happens to your sense of normal when the highlight reel is the only reel you ever see? In a study led by Hui-Tzu Grace Cho and Nicholas Edge, researchers found that people who spent more time on Facebook were significantly more likely to believe that everyone else was happier and living better lives than they were. Almost none of that belief matched reality. It was built entirely from a curated highlight reel where nobody posts the argument, the rejection, or the quiet, uneventful evening that made up most of their actual day. You are comparing your full, unedited life against a few hand-picked seconds of everyone else's best moments, over and over, dozens of times a day. How is a comparison instinct built for a campfire supposed to survive contact with that? It mostly can't, not without some help. Every scroll adds another face to a rival list that was never designed to hold more than a few dozen names. Your body quietly pays the biological cost of tracking all of them, even the ones you will never meet and who do not know you exist. This is not a character flaw. It's a pattern we humans have carried since long before anyone could read or write, and it is not evidence that you are somehow weaker, needier, or more insecure than everyone else scrolling beside you. It is what happens when an instinct built over hundreds of thousands of years meets a technology barely 2 decades old, running at a scale nothing in your evolutionary history ever prepared you for. So, what do you actually do with an alarm system that keeps firing at the wrong targets? Once you can name the mechanism, it starts to lose some of its grip. The tightening in your chest when you see someone else's success is not a verdict on your life. It is a hunter-gatherer alarm system going off in response to information it was never designed to process, sounding the exact same warning whether the threat is a rival standing at your fire or a stranger 3,000 miles away who edited 50 photos down to 1. You can notice that alarm without obeying it. You can remember that every post you envy went through a selection process, and you are comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. You can remember that the size of your real tribe, the people who actually know your ordinary Tuesdays, was never meant to include millions of strangers competing for attention. So the next time you close an app and feel like you are somehow losing a race you never signed up for, remember what is actually happening underneath that feeling. You didn't lose anything real. You just asked a brain built for a fire and 50 faces to rank you against the entire planet. And it did exactly the job it was built to do.